she just Oya has capacity. You know what I mean? She fills the largest calabash. She can handle it.
Are you doing that shadow work? That's warrior work, right?
That is.
Get it together, right? She was like, you gotta get it together for this baby.
Death is not the end.
No matter what I'm going through, I'm never destroyed.
With the loss of my daughter several weeks ago. And so when I think about that personal transformation right now, it's like I'm living it in this moment, trusting that Oya is going to help bring me through this storm.
My name is Oyafunmi. I can pray my name. Oya gives me joy.
I was kind of dragged along and was introduced through church.
How are you actually living your life today that will help to honor you in your death?
The storm is a dance.
Yes.
You know, she's going to do it scared, but she's going to do it.
Not all storms come to, destroy. Some come to rebuild.
Jango would send her before him, the one who precedes her husband in battle.
If you study nature, you study the Orisa.
Yeah.
You going to hold that machete when people are saying no, or when they're scared, or when they're fearful. Are you going to stand your ground?
Humanity depends on us working together and not breaking each other down.
Welcome to another episode of Voices of Ewa. I am your host, Iya Omisegun, and Voices of Ewa is a podcast that amplifies the voices of women across the diaspora who have committed their life to studying and growing in our African traditions. This is season 2 of Voices of Ewa, and this season we have been talking about embodying the Orisha and really looking at the values and the essence of the energy of the Orisha. We have kind of laid some foundation in the earlier episodes this season, and for the last few seasons we've been talking about different Orisha and their different values, and really how priestesses of those Orisha live their values each day. And this episode is a very special episode. It's always special when we have, guests from outside the Atlanta area. So I want to give you all an opportunity. Well, I didn't say that this episode is actually on Oya. So we're going to be talking about our Epayansa, the energy of Iya Oya, and transition, change. We're really looking at her wins and how they change, how change and transition, how we embody that in our life. So I want to give you all an opportunity to introduce yourselves, tell us where you're from, brag on yourself, please. Let us know all the amazing things, because y'all are doing some amazing things, in your own lives. And we always want to hear the story of how you got started in the traditions.
You will go.
Wonderful. Yes. Great. Sure. I am Ayobunmi, or Oyaranti Ifashade. Yes. And I am from Baltimore, born and raised.
Yes,
born Baltimore. In Miami, but raised in Baltimore.
Okay.
So I claim be more. I am the founder of A Soulful Journey, which is a death doula organization that supports people in transition and transformation at the end of their lives. And how did I get here? So one day, my husband came home and said, "Hey, you know what? I am really getting ready to start and interested in getting initiated." Now, prior to that, we had, dipped and dabbed in a little bit of study. The church that we went to actually was the pastor is actually an Akan priest.
Wow.
Right. And so, we already was introduced to a duality of an ATR and in Christian faith. Yeah. Right. And but at some point we decided to go the other route with Ifa. And so he had been talking to our godfather, who was also a friend of his, and one of his rites of passage brothers, and decided that he wanted to move forward in initiation. And what he said was, "I'm not looking for you to commit to anything. I'm not asking you to do anything. I just want you to study with me, because that thought process of a family that prays together stays together, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I started studying. I did that for 6 years, and one day, our Yeye said it's time. And I initiated in Ile Ife in 2019. And here we are today.
The rest is history.
And the rest is it's her story.
Right. I said we have similar stories because I was kind of dragged along and was introduced through church also. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I am Tabitha Ifalokun Oyafunmi. I am a native of Brooklyn, New York, but I reside in Baltimore. So Baltimore is now home. I am the owner of All Good Things, as well as the Bobo Oya Instagram page where I spread different messages about Oya. And so how did I get into the tradition? Well, first, I feel like every moment of my life prepared me for this tradition.
Right.
And so I grew up in a very Afrocentric church in Brooklyn, New York. And I just chased after that feeling. You know what I mean? Like I had the Africanness, but the spirituality wasn't matching up as I continued my journey. And so I was a minister in training in the church that I went to in Baltimore.
Okay.
And I was going to seminary school. But I was like, before I did go this far, I need to do some self-reflection. And in that reflection, I found that this just doesn't feel right to me.
Okay.
And so from there, I began to study. And then one day I was in a chapter meeting with a soror and we were talking and she was telling me that she had went to Benin and that she had like this life-changing reading. And I was like, what? Yeah. She was like, girl, yeah, I'm trying to find community here and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, me too. Put me on. And so she was like, well, Soror Turner is a priestess of Oya. And I was like, no, I didn't know that. So I'm talking to her on the phone and text her like, hey, Sora, I'm interested in practicing Yoruba religion and, could you help me? And she was like, sure, not a problem. I'm going to connect you with my godfather. And here I am.
Wow.
Yeah. And shout out to our godfather.
Right.
Shango Wui Ifagbimi.
Shango Wui Ifagbimi and his godfather, his teacher, Chief Dayo Araba Ologundudu. I want to give both of them a shout out today.
I'm so excited. Welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Our sisters from Baltimore are here, so we're continuing to stretch outside the Atlanta area. I'm excited about that.
Yes.
Thank y'all for being here. So let's just dive right into it. Let's talk about your yeye.
Yes.
And the energy of Oya. So how can y'all define the energy of Oya in your words and like how that energy shows up in your life?
I would say remembrance, right? My name is Oyaranti. Oya remembers me. And when I think about remembrance, how she shows up in my life and her energy around remembering the community, right? Remembering our destiny, remembering the work that we have to do, with the energy of those subtle winds, with the energy of the ferocious winds, those storms, the energy of the marketplace, and when I say marketplace, not just for commerce.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like the marketplace here on earth, right? Just thinking about that marketplace and being a protector and an advocate and having that ancestral bridge, right? From this realm to the spiritual realm. And so when I think about Oya, I think about her in those ways and how those things are manifested and, how she is at the threshold of life and death.
Yes.
Right. And life and death physically, but then life and death of other things as well. Right. So, yeah.
We can get into some of that. Absolutely. What about you? Yeah.
Me, Oya is fierce clarity. Every twist and turn, she is one with me. I am one with her. She is resilience. You know what I mean? She bore 9 stillborn children and she still suited up for battle. She still tried again and tried again and tried again. So
that's determination.
If she can, I don't know how well I would be after 1 stillbirth, but 9 and to continue to go in battle before your husband and say, I still got to go to war. I still have to take care of things. And so that's how she shows up for me. Just this resilience and constantly reminding me of myself.
Okay, so we hear about. So you mentioned like one of her oriki, right? The one who goes before her husband in battle, the bearded lady, the tall and elegant woman, right? And Efulele, like the winds, right? I grew up in the Caribbean, right? And I always tell the story of like hurricanes, and then getting into this tradition, right? And understanding like the ferocious nature of how wind can be, right? Like destructive on one end, right? But then what comes after those destructions? Like what comes after that change and those transitions? So let's just talk about like maybe some of the personal lessons, right? That you all have learned through like change and transition that you've experienced as a priestess of Oya.
I'll let you go first.
It's like deep breath, deep sigh.
She, no matter what I'm going through, I'm never destroyed. You know what I mean? I always have joy. You know, if I don't have nothing else, my name is Oyafunmi. I can pray my name. Oya gives me joy. Oya gives me joy. And I trust that. And so that's what I walk with. No matter what is going on, I will return to joy. I will be better than I was before. And that has pushed me through. But the storms are hard. They are painful. They hurt. You won't understand. But Oya brings me joy. Oya brings me joy. Oya brings me joy.
Yeah. You know what? I would say so many ways. There is a recent transformation, right, for me. And there is a new identity that I will be living into with the loss of my daughter several weeks ago. And so when I think about, you know, though that personal transformation right now, it's like I'm living it in this moment, right? It is trusting that Oya is going to help bring me through this storm, right? She's holding space with me right now, helping me to release any doubts, any fears, any regret, you know, and in that release, helping me to rebuild, right? Helping me to rebirth what resilience look like, you know, what faith looks like, what trust looks like. You know, losing a child is a big transformation, right? It is change beyond change. And as Oyafunmi talked about, you know, when I think about the fact that she, you know, lost 9 children, right, and kept going and so on, I get an opportunity to even learn from that, right? What does that look like? And showing up as a mother, right? And what does mothering now look like for me? I have another child. I have 3 grandchildren, my daughter's children, and I get an opportunity to really kind of do some soul searching, right? In what it looks like to mother in a different way, and not only to mother the 4 of them, you know, my son and my 3 grandchildren, but also to mother my child in the spiritual realm. What does it look like to be able to connect with the energy of Oya to help support me in mothering in that spiritual realm? And so I would say, like, I'm in the midst of that, and that, you know, and that change and that transformation right now. And last, I would say, just giving me an opportunity to open up the path to compassion, right? In a deeper way, even in my ministry as an end of life planner and a death doula. And so I'm trusting the process, right? And someone said to me at my daughter's funeral, they said, "How is it that you're so vertical?"
Man,
right? That was the question.
I mean, that's accurate.
Right? The question was, why? How are you so vertical? And it's because of that energy of my yeye that walks with me every day and remember who I am and helping me to remember what my destiny is that allows me to be so vertical. And that, you know, death is not the end, right? There is my daughter is not here in the physical realm, But there will be a day where I'll be able to call on her and call her name and connect with her in a whole nother way that I've never been able to on this side of this spiritual world that we live in. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing your story. We had dinner last night, right? And when you said it last night, that was the first time that I learned about it. And even when you say it again, it's still just, it like slapped me in the face. And I was like, so what that person said in terms of, and I was telling you that I still struggle with, like my understanding of death and grief and how to deal with that and the things that it triggers for me. And yeah, that person. So I was saying like, I didn't have words, and you were like, there are no words, right? And I still feel, right? I still feel like that. There's nothing that I want to say, but I do want to say like, thank you for your, like your courage and your vulnerability to share that, right? Like with everyone that's watching.
Thank you.
Because there are many of us that still, still struggle. And I don't know how you're so vertical, right? Like I don't know, but and I understand that you do walk with you talked about being a death doula. Like this is something that you continue to work with and understand more of. So I just appreciate you being willing to share with us.
Thank you.
I really, really, really do.
You're welcome.
One thing also about Oya is that she is always with us. We breathe in, we breathe out. She is there. You ain't got to look far. You don't have to look far for Oya. So you can always return to her.
Yeah.
And so
in every breath,
in every single breath, she's there.
She's one of the Orisa that's with us when we're born and with us when we die, when we transition. That first breath, that continuum breath all the way between, and then that last breath.
Yeah. I had a good sister friend that was a child of Oya. And she would always say, like, everybody relies on her to be like strong, right? Like she walks with a particular energy. And so she brings that energy wherever she goes. And she was always like, like, I don't really necessarily want to be the strong friend all the time. Like, do you all feel like that? Do you get that? Is that a thing?
Yes, but I kind of agree with that in a sense that Oya has capacity. You know what I mean? She fills the largest calabash. She can handle it. You know what I mean? And so that has been my experience with Oya. Of course, I get weak sometimes and I don't want to be the strong friend, but I also know that I have the capacity. And so to me, if I know that I have the capacity and I'm not being strong for my friend or being strong for whatever that situation calls for, like, is that Iwa Pele? If I know I have it and I'm not giving it. You know what I mean? So capacity is Oya.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think that it's interesting because you train people how to treat you.
Yeah.
And I have trained people that I'm the strong one. And what I'm learning is even in that strength, there is community that will support me as well. Right.
Okay.
In that strength, I also need, in order for me to keep going and to be resilient and to increase that strength, I need someone to pour into Charmaine as well, right?
Yeah.
Or to Oyaranti as well. And that's okay, right? Because I do gather that strength, from the community, even though I come and I show up with that capacity and that resilience to be able to do all the things, right? To support others, to support the community, to advocate, to be courageous, right? And I think that that's just always who I've been, and understanding the energy of Oya is like, wow, she really remembers me. Like I've been this person all my life.
Yeah.
In a brief story connected to the one I just shared, my husband said, when my mother transitioned in 2012, my husband said, we got to get the house together and, we have to, make sure we have food and drinks and things for people to come over here. And I said, nobody's coming here. And he was like, what? That's how you do in your family? This, that, ever said that is what we do in our family. But no one's showing up for Oyaranti in that way because I am the strong one. I'm the one that always shows up. And people are not going to see that I need in that way because the way that I showed up in such a way that made it feel like I didn't.
Like you didn't need it.
Like I didn't need it, right? So fast forward 5 weeks ago, my husband wakes up that morning. People are going to be coming over here. We need to da-da-da. And I said, okay. Because I now understand the power of my strength and where I draw it from and what I need to keep moving and to keep going.
Man, you know, I'm thinking about, I talk about this sometimes. Joan Morgan has a book for chicken heads. But I can't remember the whole name. But she talks about the strong Black woman, and it's all one word in big capital letters, right? And she talks about having a funeral for her strong Black woman, so that she could be in a position to accept, right? Love, support, right? And not feel like she has to like carry everything on her back, which is actually like, that is the way I'm thinking about I was going to say the way we were trained, right? I'm trained like as a Caribbean woman. I remember my house was burning down one day. My daughter was 6 weeks old, and the house was ablaze. And I melted in my neighbor, who's Panamanian, but right, and she's got that Caribbean energy. She was like, get it together, right? She was like, you gotta get it together for this baby and get it together for your family, right? And I was just like, I was in my 20s, right? Like, zip it up, suck it up. And right, and back to that thought process of not always wanting to or even needing to be strong, and being able to accept help and know that support is coming for you. I can imagine that there are a lot of women that I serve, right, that have to do work to let that go and be in a position to receive.
I see that as a part of strength. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that
That's good.
You don't need help.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's knowing when you need help, and I'm strong enough to ask for it and to get what I need back. So for me, that is my strength. I trust my community. I trust, if nobody else, this one right here, my Arjabona. Hey, if I'm having a problem, I need you. There's nothing that I haven't called her for that she hasn't been there. And so to me, that is my strength. You are my strength.
Oh, mine too. I receive, I give.
So Oya will bring different like change and transition, right? And that can come in a multiple of ways, right? You mentioned like death, loss can come in a multiple of ways. Is there such a thing as like healthy, right? Like, what is healthy guided transition, right? Spiritually guided transition look like? Because, you know, for like, there's people like me, like I might be flopping all over the friggin' floor, you know, like, and fighting, you know, transition, right? I mentioned earlier that I was going through my own transition now that all 6 children are out of the house, right? The baby, just, you know, we just dropped him off to college, and I found myself just like lamenting and crying, right? And I'm like, what's wrong with you, girl? Like, the boy is going to Florida. He ain't, you know, like what am I grieving? Right? And being okay with grief. Like, how have you all dealt with that, different types of like various loss, divorce, you know, death, loss.
Yeah.
The size, y'all.
I know, because it's so much.
It's real.
You know,
Yeah,
grief shows up in so many ways and on a daily basis. And we tend in this society to associate grief only with death of a physical person.
Yeah.
And it's so much more.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, you know, the question around, you know, healthy and spiritually guided, first and foremost, is like acknowledgement, right? You know, acknowledge the fact that you're sitting in and that you are grieving. Like, you acknowledged that yesterday when you dropped your son off to college. That was an acknowledgement first and foremost of, wow, I now have, again, this new normal, right? With these 6 children out of the house. And what am I going to do with this? Right? I'm used to caring for, picking up, dropping off, school meetings, this, that, and the other. Now I got a little bit of free time. And then what I'm going to do with all of this free time? And what can you rebirth in losing the last child? And it's not really lost in this particular case, right? But, that transition. And I think, after that acknowledgement, there's a space of acceptance, right? I'm acknowledging that I'm in grief, and I'm accepting whatever that is that grief is offering me, right? And then what is that commitment, right? What is the commitment to what it is I am accepting, right? Am I accepting this new normal in such a way and that is going to help elevate me to my highest and greatest good, right? And so, I'm acknowledging it, I'm accepting it, and then there's this commitment. And then from that commitment of whatever it is that you're committing to, or I'm going to speak for myself, whatever it is that I am going to commit to, it is then having that trust and that faith and that courage to move into whatever is being rebirthed from that loss. And so when I think about it from a spiritual perspective, I think about it, how it threads through each one of those pieces, right, to get to the other side. And when I say get to the other side, it's not because grief is cyclical, right? It's not linear. Yeah. And so when I say get to the other side, that could look many ways. It's not my grief is now over. It is how have I integrated this grief in my life on a daily basis to help support me in my new normal, or to support me in my new identity, right? As a person, but never to think that I'm gonna get to the other side and it's done. Yeah, never that. Yeah.
I see like grief and those types of transitions as alignment. And I think we trick ourselves by thinking that alignment is without pain or without feeling. You know what I mean? It ain't always, pretty and flowery. Sometimes you feel it. And so, but it's still alignment. And so to me, if you reframe your thinking in that way, you'll be able to move through and you'll be able to trust that better is on the other side of those things and peace is somewhere underneath. No matter what you're going through, you feel like I'm going to be better. I'm still peaceful. I'm in alignment. It don't feel good, but I'm in alignment. And so that's how I choose to see that, like a spiritually guided thing. Like I'm getting alignment. I'm getting in tune.
Yeah, like I have definitely experienced Oya's energy in terms of like in my own grieving process. And my mother passed away, and I'm not really talking about just when she passed away, but in divorce, right? In different loss of relationships, right? Sometimes we have to let relationships go, and that person is still very much alive, right? But there's a loss, right? There's work and grief that we have to feel and experience to be able to, like you said, to like get to the other side. And I do go to Oya to assist with those different storms and situations, because my Osaogunda, my Odu is heavily Oya, right? And if I had gotten initiated in a different place and time, I think I probably would have been initiated to Oya, right? That would have been the initial, like someone said that to me, like if you had been in Oshogo at that time, like they would have definitely initiated you to, but I was like at that time in my life, there's just no, like I know, like there would have been no way for me to have that energy on my head and still be okay, the amount of anger and the amount of, like I needed something different, right? But I still work with the energy even though I'm not initiated to it. So you both, like, right, I call you a market woman for sure, right?
Yes.
And then you have that path of you talked about being a death doula, right? Like, let's talk a little bit about that, like that work. What is that work like for you? Because I know for a lot of people that might even be new. Right? Like a lot of people may not even know what a death doula is.
Yes. What that work like is like It is the work of change. It's the work of transformation. It's the work of compassion. It's the work of grace. Grace for not only yourself, but for those folks that are around you. It is, and so as an end of life planner and as a death doula, my role is to just hold space, right, for people who are experiencing their end of life, and for loved ones who are experiencing end of life for their family members. And in holding that space, it is compassionate care, right? It is really compassionate care, but it's also planning. Right. In our communities, people of color oftentimes, we've not planned for this day, right, or for that day, and many things happen. There are arguments, and there are, how I have, weddings and funerals, planning, and there's in family, strife and so on, and part of, and then we don't talk about it, right? We just don't even talk about death in that way. And so part of my role is to normalize the conversations, around death, and to help people to plan for it. One of the worst things, I was on a panel earlier this summer, and we were talking about planning from a perspective of having wills and estate planning and advanced directives and so on, and how many times grandmama in them house, is taken away because we just didn't plan for her death, and nobody knew what to do, how to do it. The house wasn't in a trust. It owed some money here, but no one knew how to navigate and facilitate that process, right? And so, and then there are those untimely things, the accident that we tend to think, oh, you know what, the person that has cancer or a terminal illness, and we know that this is coming, but not those sudden ways. And so how are we actually taking the time to plan for those moments? And then the legacy, right? I always think about legacy because I can't speak about death without speaking about life. And so part of the work and the role that I have is asking those hard questions of how are you actually living your life today that will help to honor you in your death, right? And are you living your life in such a way that you want people to, for the legacy that you want to leave behind. That's the way I would say it, right? And so while we're talking about death, we're also talking about life. Like, from the moment that we step foot all the way through, to get to that other side. And so that's the work that I would say is, of a death doula. And it's many different things. In my practice, I use herbs. There's a piece of who I am that is an herbalist, right? Using what I know from this tradition, that I've learned, and being able to normalize and help people to honor their wishes. I shared with you last night that, one of the hardest things for me to do was to put my daughter in a blue tracksuit, but that was her wish, right? I was like, oh man, I would have rather put this outfit on and this, and so on. But her wish was to do that. And this is how she lived her life. And so I want to honor her death in the same way that she lived. And this is what we're going to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm appreciative and just commend the work, because it's hard for me to even, to start formulating the words around. I tell my children all the time, I do know I want to be a tree. Like, I voice that. They think it's funny. They do that. They laugh every single time. They laugh every single time. But I was like, nope, I've decided, like, yep, I want to be a tree. They're like, Mom, you want to be a tree? I'm like, yes, right? Like, we'll have some land, and, you can visit us, and our great-great-grandchildren can visit us, But when you said last night, I asked you, on the way out, I was like, well, when should you start planning? Right. And you were like,
today.
right now. And I was like, shit. You know?
Right.
That's the thought. I went home and I told my husband, I was like, and he was like, and I said, I asked her when we should start planning. And he was like, she probably said right now. And I was like, yeah, she did. And that kind of led to more conversations. So again, I really appreciate your work and you sharing that. So I do want to also talk about, we mentioned Oya, like as a market woman. And last season we did an episode on market woman and that same concept, right? Of we're all market woman because, right? If heaven, Orun is our home, right? Earth is a marketplace, right?
Sure.
And so how has but you also as a businesswoman and a market woman, like how have you used Oya's energy in that way?
I didn't even know I was using Oya's energy in that way, because my business kind of started very organically. Like I never saw myself as one who would sell things in that way. But to me, I do sell things. I sell t-shirts. Yes. I sell Florida wear. I sell the things. But to me, the marketplace is more than selling things. It's a place of organization. You getting everybody together. It's a place where you seeing people win. You seeing people lose. You're seeing celebrations. You're seeing grief. You are connecting people, and that is how the marketplace shows up for me. I'm like a connect. Someone say you a person that knows all the people, all the things, and I was like, yes, that is true. People can come to me and somebody that does this, and I'll be like, absolutely do, and I connect and I connect and I connect, and to me, that's how the earthly marketplace continues to orbit.
Yes,
because connections are being made, and so that's how the marketplace plays out in me. I'm a connector of people, things. And so I sell things, but I'm just the connector.
But you got that good Florida water.
That Florida water is good now. Age for a moon cycle with all the herbs and spices. Yeah. I'm a connector of people. Beautiful.
So let's talk about some of Oya's maybe her tools, right? Tools and practices that you all use. Everybody, this has been it's felt like we talked about this last night too, right? The fact that people need to come together. But I think part of the reason why people need to come together is there is some major stuff that's happening in the world all around us, right? So people are going through a sense of loss. They are going through a sense of grief. A lot of people have lost their jobs this year. Just that alone, right, has really put people in a state of shock. Like my brother lost his job, right, and he thought his job was super secure. And me, I'm like, come on over to it's freedom time, right? It's liberation. Let's work for ourselves. Yes. Come on, big bro. But that took some transition for him because he was used to it being a stable income, stable. He was like, damn, you live on the edge, sis. This is but yeah, what kind of are there tools and practices that help people to connect to that ability to deal with change a little bit better, right? Like stabilize in transition. Like you mentioned, seeing, right? I don't know if you said have gratitude in it, but that's almost what I got from it, right? But yeah,
connect with your breath.
Oya breathing through it.
Breathe intentionally.
The wind within yourself.
Yes, just return to center. Breathe in, breathe out. In between each exhale, inhale, there's stillness in there, and so taking that moment to process, to think, to hear, and so to me that is my tool. I also use dance. Oya, if you look at many stories about her, she danced. She moved energy with her dance. The storm is a dance.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so she dipped and dodged. She twirled around. She danced. And
the storm is a dance.
The storm is a dance. That's what I do. Every Tuesday I'm at dance class and I am praying. I'm moving. I'm wielding energy. I'm bringing things to myself and I'm giving away what doesn't serve me. So dance has really helped me.
Relocating that energy, right? And getting rid of the energy that don't serve you, so you can bring in that new energy. Yeah, I would say, in addition to breath, Oya is a connector as well, right? And a bridge builder. And so when I think about using a tool or using tools, I think about all of the tools that are just right here, right now, first and foremost. And so I have my own Ori.
Yes.
How am I working with Oya to connect with my Ori to help support me in my destiny? And what does that look like with all of the other Orisha, like you shared earlier, what you needed at that time, but you also still call on the energy of those other Orisha, even though you're not initiated to them, right? And so when I think about connection and that bridge builder, Oya is a connect and a bridge builder for me to Ifa, to my ancestors, to my Egbe, to, my Ori and those other Orishas here first, right? And those are the tools that I use the most. And then there's some other tools, we'll talk about a little later, but those are the tools that I think of immediately. And then, of course, breath, and she shared that already, because we hold everything. And one day you like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I wasn't exhaling.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I wasn't breathing, right? And so, when I talk about herbalism, there's a spray that I make to help promote breath, right? It is just, sprayed in the air, to promote that breath, for you to inhale and then for you to release on that exhale, right? And so that would be the first tool, or those would be the first tools that I would be thinking about.
Yeah. I had an iridology reading
Nice.
maybe a long time ago. But what she said to me, she looked in my eyes and she was like, "You're not breathing." And I was like, "What, lady?" Like, clearly I'm breathing, right? And she was like, "No, you're not taking in enough oxygen," right? And she was like, "Take deeper breaths." Right. She was like, because there were spots in my eyes that she could see that meant that my body wasn't receiving enough oxygen. And I was so I used to dance a lot. I was in my 20s at the time. And I was like, that was insane. First of all, that she could see that looking in my eyes, but that I had never considered, like you said, that I'm not taking deep breaths, right? The exchange of oxygen in my body, right? The carbon dioxide that I'm blowing out, like that necessary exchange is a huge part of our regulation system. And we're often in a state of like anxiety and all the stuff, tension, stress that could be in our bodies, and we're just not breathing. So like taking a moment to really just
deeply breathe.
Like deep breath in and like blow it out.
Intentional breathing.
Intentional breath.
Because to your point, you are breathing.
Right.
How intentional is that breath? You're doing the involuntary breathing every day, right? That just comes with your body, right? But what is that? How do we be intentional about intentional breathing? Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about like if audience members are wanting to cultivate a relationship with Oya, right? That's the whole premise of this season, is like, how do we embody the Orisha? So let's say someone is wanting to cultivate, maybe they're a child of Oya, maybe not, but they're wanting to connect with that energy more. So we talked about like breathe, like, and I never even thought about breathing as a, right? But with Oya being the wind, right? When you said that, I was like, oh, there's that wind is in our body too, right?
Absolutely.
But are there other like practical ways for people to connect with that energy?
Yeah. I would say connecting with the energy is understanding the energy first, right? Learning what that energy is, learning that energy is the energy of a warrior. And it's also the energy of a healer, right? At the same time. Two things can be true. There is duality in all things, right? Death, rebirth, and so understanding, Oya is a river deity as well. Like she is And so what is the energy of water and how it flows, right? What is the energy of transformation? What is the energy of change? What is the energy of the marketplace, right? And how do you go deeper in that process? What is the energy of death? Again, death of anything, right? And so when understanding the energies of who she is, those subtle winds, those storms, those tornadoes, and so on, you begin to understand what that looks like in your life on a daily basis, right? And so, an example would be, we talked about, you just said something about Black women. We can sometimes be seen as, oh, you know what, you're the aggressive one. And, strong Black woman in the boardroom and aggressiveness, and, all the words that don't serve us.
Right.
And it is like the energy of a warrior is, I'm going to advocate and I'm going to fight for myself and my people and my family, right? I'm not being aggressive in this negative way. I am fighting for my life and my family and my community and my people, right? And I am, and the way that I heal may sometimes be like, girl, get yourself together.
Right.
In that moment, that's what you needed, right? And that was a healing moment that you probably didn't even realize it in that moment, but it was. I needed to snap out of that, right? For me to get on the other side so that my baby can get to where they are today, And so having that duality, even of a warrior healer, what does that look like and how it shows up for you every day? What are you doing to fight for yourself? What are you doing to advocate for yourself, right? And are you doing that shadow work? That's warrior work, right?
That is warrior work.
You have to
Absolutely.
do that shadow work. And so when we're doing that, then on the other side of that is that healing, right? When I am looking deep and I'm taking that cutlass, that E-Day, that's Oya's cutlass, and I'm breaking down or I'm cutting through those things that I have to deal with myself. On the other side of that is healing, right? And so when I think about a daily basis, that's one way. Absolutely. In a very practical way. And then the last thing I would say is the language and the self-talk for ourselves, right? The energy of Oya can be viewed and seen in a negative way. If you choose to look at it that way, you can choose to look at death as a bad thing, or you can choose to look at it as rebirth is coming. You can choose to look at, fighting is a bad thing, or you can look at it as I'm fighting, for something good, and then I'm healing from that on the other side. And so really just being able to shift the language that we have every day in self-talk of what is negative. Not all storms come to, destroy. Some come to rebuild, right? And so if you look at it from that perspective and you begin to walk in that truth and that faith and that courage from an asset-based perspective versus a deficit-based perspective, that's the energy of Oya, right? So, yeah.
Ooh, for me, you have to get real about courage and what that means for you. Oya is a warrior. Ain't no warrior without a war. You know what I mean? And so war is liberation. You know what I mean? We are in a state of war right now. So we're going to have to buckle up and get ready. We're going to have to say the things that we need to say. We're going to have to do the things that we need to do. And so I think we have to get real about what we're willing to do and where we are in that courage factor. I also think that Oya deal with, just do a cursory review about what is a tornado, what is a storm, what is breath. That's what I did when I was kind of getting to know Oya. And what I found is that breath and storms are one and the same. You, in the center of that storm is stillness. When we breathe in and out, it's stillness. And so I really understood what breath is, what a storm is. And wow, I made some connections, and that it really just started to live through me in a different way. And so just the basic concepts, go out in nature, How do you feel when you feel wind or a cool breeze? How do you feel when things are stirring around you? Are you standing on your feet? Are you to the side? My godfather always says, how are you sitting on your throne? Like when we were getting initiated, he would say, how are you sitting on your throne? You sitting straight up, or are you to the side? And you need to do those things that get you sitting straight up on your throne. And so to me, that is what Oya has represented, doing that work. So I'm sitting straight up on my throne.
Yeah.
Ashe.
You know, thank you both. I'm thinking about the Oriki, right? And how badass Oya is, right? To the point where Shango, right? You better find out.
Cut your hair right off.
To the point where Shango would send her before him, right? The one who precedes her husband in battle. Like, just take that in, right? Like, say that with a deep breath in and blow it out, right? To understand her true nature, right? Where he was so sure of who his woman was. And I'm going to send her before me, right? Scope it out, get it together, right? And I'm coming right behind you, like, to finish up. Like, that is a powerful, powerful energy that we all walk with. Right?
And it mimics in nature, back to when I was studying those things. Before thunder comes, it's like a millisecond of a particle that comes before that thunder. Who is it? Oya.
That's Oya.
You know what I mean? So it's even mimicking in our nature that she goes before Shango. And she's scoping out the scene and coming back to report is good or bring this or
here's
that.
what we need to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then how they work together. Right. My husband is Shango, right? Shango Bimi. And I'm just thinking about how our relationship is so complementary, right? And how we work, with one another. I may go in that battle and, before, and then there's on the other side of that, how do we settle things down a bit, right? Because in the eye of that storm, we still got to get to that other side, right? And I think that that energy between those two is just so complementary, and all the Orisha, really just thinking about nature. If we study nature, we study the energy, right? If we're out in nature, it is take a moment to go outside and put your feet on the ground and in the grass and just sit there and meditate for a moment on thinking about, I was a science major, so I think about the Earth's crust and, and all the way deep down and, and how we build on that energy when we just stand and we ground ourselves, on in the earth. And so, just absolutely beautiful, that complementary nature. And if you study nature, you study the Orisha.
Yeah, it's actually the thing that brought me to the Orisha, right? Like the fact that I could find these, this energy in nature and can see it up close and look at it. And, like I also was a biology major. So it fascinated me, right? That I didn't have to necessarily, I really didn't have to go to anyone else, right? I could sit there and be at the river. I could, like you said, like look and hear lightning and thunder and take a pause and, like be in that energy and really connect to it. The last thing that I just want to touch on, and you both touched on it, like that warrior energy and the fact that, one, you mentioned that we are at war. And if you don't know and understand that as Black people now, then it's time to like wake up, right? Get it together as my elder said at that time. But that, what I also hear is that there are rituals, I heard you said, like there are rituals that prepare us that as we're going into war, right? That we should know for ourselves, like how to be prepared, right? And I imagine that energy of Oya, that is another space for her, for us to be able to breathe, right? To do our shadow work, to check in with ourselves, right? To create rituals for ourselves as we go out to protect our homes, protect our loved ones, protect ourselves, right? There are rituals that we can engage in as in that feminine energy, right? To fully prepare ourselves.
Yeah. I think it's about organization. I think it's about community. I think everyone needs to know what their position is in that war. Everybody ain't on the front lines. You know what I mean? Somebody's caring for the children. Somebody's healing the injured. Somebody is cooking. You know, being clear about what your role is in that war.
Yes.
And I think we can win it.
Ashe.
And I think it's also, you know, understanding those indigenous practices of our ancestors, right? The concept of a village, you know, we say it takes a village to raise a child. And for some people, it's cliche. That's real.
That's super real.
You know what I mean? And when we're talking about community, ain't nobody coming to save us.
Not opposed.
No one is coming. I have a good friend. He says it all the time. Ain't nobody coming to save us. And so how do we collaborate? How do we organize? And when I say organize, I'm saying like maroon organizing, right? Because we don't need to be on the internet telling all our business all the time, right? And on social media, it is how do we go underground and we organize, and Oya is a strategist, right? And how do we build strategy, you know, amongst ourselves and guess what? It's going to be some people we're going to have to bring in the fold because they don't know. And they've been colonized like all the rest of us, but they kind of still sitting in it a little bit, right? Yeah. You know, and so, and we all do, and you know, and that's not in a and to say, you know, any judgment, because they're on a daily basis. I have to uncolonize myself, right? Because of, you know, we live in this world, right? We live in this United States, and so, you know, how do we go underground and organize and really look back at the practices of our ancestors when we were all in the village together, right? And we all took care of the children. But we had a strategy of how we think about even over here. Yeah. You had the Underground Railroad. They had they had maps in their braids. You know what I mean? They had, you know, allies, you know, all across the world and so on. That was strategy. They went underground somewhere and said, we are going to come out stronger and we're going to save our people 300 years, 500 years, you know, 1,000 years from now by just going underground, coming together and creating a strategy that will have our legacy to be sustained in the future with Black people, right? They did it here. And so you don't even have to reach back to Africa. Reach back to, you know, 18 something here in the United States, right? And you see models, you know, but if it's interesting because, you know, last year, Dr. Karinga talked about this in his Kwanzaa what is it? His talk, his address for Kwanzaa for the 24 year moving into 25. We have this as a theme in the Odu for this year, right? You know, working together, coming together, collaboration, partnership, taking care of each other. And then the organization that puts out the theme every year for Black History Month, that was the theme again for Black History Month. And so this is not, I mean, it's like Spirit is telling us, right? This energy is in the atmosphere and it's coming up everywhere. And when it dropped, you know, on the mat, that's like, oh, okay. Done. You know, Karinga could say what he said, the Black History people, it dropped on the mat. Yeah. And that was after those two people said that, right? And so having that, it's like we are in alignment, right? And how do we take those tools of Oya and work with our Ori to be in alignment through and through so that we can come out successful and prosperous on the other side, not only for ourselves, but for our people, our community, you know, by and large.
I think that warrior stance is also, you may have to make some hard decisions. You know what I mean? They might be unpopular. Where are you in that? Are you willing to do that? Are you going to hold that machete when people are saying no, or when they're scared or when they're fearful? Are you going to stand your ground and do what needs to be done? And I feel like some people aren't there. We have to get there.
But there are some that are.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
You know, there are some that are. And I'm a firm believer in that saying that where the women go, the culture follows. Absolutely. And I do feel like there are some of us that are very clear and very astute to the fact that there are things that are changing.
Yes.
And we have to right? Come together, collaborate. And so it's not that women are doing it alone, but again, we have that collaboration. We have counterparts, and those of us that aren't scared, right, to put the machete up and to walk forward, right, have
to be leaders,
right. You know, and we talked about leadership last night, right? Like leadership is hard. It's hard. And necessary.
Exactly. And
right?
God is
necessary. Ashe.
She is a leader, and she's going to do it scared, but she's going to do it.
Ashe.
And so, where's your leadership?
Ashe.
That's to me the main focus of Oya in war. You have to lead. You have to be willing to lead, and let other people lead if that's not your strong area.
Together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like you said, everybody, we all play a role, right? And so part of that leadership is identifying and seeing who you are, like really seeing you, Sawubona, like really seeing you, right? And so if I'm really seeing you, I understand the energy that you bring and where your place is at the table, and then we're working together, not against one another. Right. And I think that is another thing, one other thing I say Oya, taught me is sisterhood. Woo, she shared that brother with Oshun and Oba, yes, right. And so, but what does that look like in the space of sisterhood? We may not always get along. There may be a little bit of tension here, there, and so on. But we're going to work together to do what is right and in EY, for the common, for the greater good, right? And so while, there may be this tension between you, girl, I still love you. And we're going to work this thing together because humanity depends on us working together and not breaking each other down.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah.
Ashe. That's a good word right there. I appreciate you both for being here on the show.
Thank
Baltimore
you.
in the building for Voices of EY.
Yes,
so the way we end on Voices of EY is we always pray for the people, give them a blessing, Oya style.
Yes.
So who would like to pray?
I'll pray.
I say,
Oya, mother of the wind. Oya, the one who turns things and changes them. Oya, the one who holds us accountable first to ourselves. Oya, the one who is the river Odo, the one who cuts the heads of the deceitful. Oya, the one who has sunshine in her underwear. That's what the Orisa says. May we be in touch with that feminine side of ourselves. Oya, help us to say what we need to say and do what we need to do. Give us courage, mother. Give us courage, mommy. Oya, I pray that you are just in our minds and our hearts so that we are well and that we are able to live out our destiny with courage.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe. I want to thank you both for being here. I want to thank you for watching another episode of Voices of Ewa. We are here every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. We are rounding out season 2, and we'll be talking to you about the season finale very shortly. If you are in the Real Women Inspire app, log on right after this, and we'll have an opportunity to kind of talk back and have some more dialogue about Oya and her energy. And if not, we will see you next week at 7 p.m. Have an amazing evening. Badaba.